All right, welcome back everyone to the RePHIL studio. This is your host SBPhilOz4. Let us refill 299 as we always do with our cans because we are ready for our next special guest. And I have the honor and pleasure to welcome Rowlet to the studio today. So as a brief intro, Rowlet has many song titles, very notably 3 T1 titles, and correct me if I'm wrong later, but I believe the 3 songs were Sets Like Sandglass, Scenario of Love, and Redo. And of course, you have a bunch of other song titles, and you're also the unofficial king of high score rating in Bang Dreams. So, Rowlet, thank you so much for joining the RePHIL studio today.
Thank you, Phil. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right. Is there anything else you would like to add to that intro?
Well, actually, it was pretty succinct, and as well as I don't really consider myself king of HSR because it's we can discuss that later.
Yeah. We'll talk about HSR in quite a bit, but I think that's a pretty good intro, and let's just get right into it. Now, of course, Rowlet, you just like many of our guests, right? We're all really fond about Bang Dream, but it's always really nice to hear how you got into it. So maybe share a little bit about how you first got into Bang Dream.
Well, it was about, I started when the global server was about 3 months old or 2 months old. So that was because I happened to see an ad while I was surfing Facebook. Yes, I'm a boomer. So I happened to see this ad, and I think it was playing Gurren no Yomiya. And I was like, wow, this is a rhythm game where I get to play anime songs, and it's not Osu. I was like, all right, I'm sold. I need something to play on mobile while I'm commuting, and just something easy to get into rather than having to go to the arcade for my rhythm game fix all the time. And what happened was I got pretty hooked because I guess that's the way we all get hooked in the first place. We don't really care about the originals, but as we play more of the game, then we realize, actually the originals are pretty good songs too. And then I suddenly found myself super invested in the franchise as a whole.
Okay. And of course, like, it's funny because I know a lot of people who got into the game, the guests we featured so far in the podcast, a lot of them did mention that they got in because they noticed the cover song that they noticed. I think Gurren is not the first time I've heard, Gurren is a very popular anime song. So of course, it's one of the songs that could really bring people in. But Rowlet, when you mentioned the franchise as a whole, as you play it, the franchise as a whole sort of helped you get into it, right? So was there a particular band or a character that you associated and really liked when you started playing?
In terms of the music, I really loved the Rosita songs when I first came in. And to be honest, my first impression of them was a whole bunch of chunies. But or edgy dark, that edgy dark motif that they always try to have. But I really loved the music that they came up with. And I found myself identifying very heavily with Yukina because I am a musician myself. So I know the lengths that we musicians go to perfect our craft. And I may not be the best musician in the world. I don't think I'm anywhere close to any of the musicians in not just Rosita, but any of the bands. But I identify with that ethic of always wanting to be the best, always wanting to reach the top, and play your best and sing your best or perform your best whenever you're on stage.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, but there was a band that gave me a very good first impression, and that was Afterglow, because they had that childhood friend vibe and everything with them, and they were playing all the songs that they covered in the style I was most comfortable with, which is rock. I mean, good old rock and roll. So when I first heard some of their covers, I was like, "Whoa, this is better than the original, or this is just as good." I would buy an album from Afterglow just to listen to in my spare time. So I think, and then when I listened to their originals, yes, they also had really good originals, but it was the covers that drew me to them in the first place.
For sure. You made a very, very bold claim that there are some covers that are better than the original. Do you have maybe like give a few songs where you think the cover is better than the original, just to kind of spice things up here?
I am not responsible for the listeners' emotions after my hot takes. I actually really love their Inferno cover. It wasn't the ones. Yeah, I really love their Inferno cover. I mean, Mrs. Green Apple did a really good job. And to be fair, for the long version, Mrs. Green Apple's version is much better.
Mm-hmm.
But when I just heard the game cut, I was like, it is everything I wanted to hear at the start of watching Fire Force.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather have Afterglow's version than Mrs. Green Apple's version playing at the start. So I know it's a really hot take, but maybe I do enjoy the what I really liked was the fact that I could hear all the instruments, and the piano played a pretty important role. So Tsugu's insane keyboarding skills coming to the fore there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just that feeling that it was very clean and very it kept to the original vibe of the song, yet having its own distinct afterglow flair that I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And that's definitely something about Bandori covers. They usually use a much different instrumental flair. So that what makes the covers quite interesting. And I'm gonna throw in my own hot take. We already mentioned this song, but my hot take is that the Roselia Guru no Yumiya is like way better than the original, but I don't really like the original that much. I'm just like weird like that, and I also don't want Roselia to full cover that song because I don't think it'll be that good. So yeah, you guys can hate me.
Don't worry, Phil. I fully agree with your take there.
Okay. Let's move. Oh, go.
Yeah,
sorry.
Especially when I hit Jaeger, I shivered when I first heard that.
Yeah, right.
It's so good.
It's so
perfect.
Good. Perfect.
Okay,
Roselia. All right. Well, let's move on a little bit, right? Let's move away from that, and let's talk a little bit more about something you also briefly mentioned. You said that you started off and you had to find something else with like arcade games. So can you elaborate a little bit more about that? Like, where did that all start? You going into arcade games, and perhaps that's sort of where you might have first got into rhythm games?
Well, actually, my first rhythm game wasn't an arcade game. It was when I was serving in my nation's army, and one of my batchmates, he introduced a game on the PSP, PlayStation Portable. I mean, the predecessor of the Vita, and it was DJ Max Portable. And I loved the game, but I was really bad at it when I started. I couldn't even pass a level 3 song. And I was just trying for hours and just like trying to figure out what I was supposed to do and try not to miss anything. But when I first completed the song, I was like, it was that feeling of euphoria of overcoming something that I could not have done before and feeling like I have improved. And that sense of achievement stuck with me. I think that's what spurred me on to try more difficult songs, try different modes, play around and try to find favorite songs as well and be really good at your favorite songs. So that was the start. Then time passed and I was never really good at DJ Max, but one day my friends took me out for a meal and we went to an arcade. They just wanted to introduce me to some games that had anime songs on it. And one of the games that they introduced to me was a game called U-Beat. Not very sure whether any of you have heard of it before. It's this arcade game with a 4x4 squares. The panel is 4x4 squares, and the squares will just light up according to music. It's like musical whack-a-mole. I was so taken by the game. I ended up playing it for 8 years after that. Yeah, so during these 8 years, I made a lot of friends in the arcade. I tried a lot of other arcade games. I played Sound Vortex. I did try My. I had this stint with this American rhythm game called Re-Rave. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of that. I did try Trinidad when I was on exchange. So it was like trying out different games, but I mostly stuck with U-Beat. And I made a lot of friends along the way. The community, all being interested in this particular type of music, which is the Japanese electronic music, and getting better at the game together as well. And eventually what happened was I found Bandori shortly before I retired from playing UB because all the arcades near my house closed.
Oh no.
So yeah, it was, I mean, they started closing one by one. And I remember there was one particular arcade when it closed. It was a shock to all of us because we didn't expect it to be closing. But on top of that, it was our favorite arcade. So there was like, I know we went back there the day before it was supposed to close and we just had one good session of playing together.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, those were the arcade days. And as time went on, I realized that mobile games were a little bit more accessible to me because I didn't need to make time to go and play at an arcade. I could just take out my device and start playing. And when I felt like it, I could stop. It gave me a lot more freedom and a lot more time to do other pursuits.
Yeah, for sure. And in theory, right, you don't have to necessarily spend, some coins here and there. You in theory don't have to whale, right?
That's what I say when I started Bandori, and it lasted all of 1 month.
Oh no! Oh boy, I guess some habits, die hard. So
they do.
It's how it is. But that's really interesting. How like your origin story came from all the arcades, and you put all that time and money and effort to improve, right, and be able to master those songs, and then that definitely carried over, right? That carried over to how you were able to quickly improve and get good in Bandori. So, Rowlet, in your mind, and I guess based on your experience, what really motivated you, or what really pushed you to improve and try to get good at these rhythm games, and what kind of tips or what sort of strategies you did to try and improve?
Well, I will start with you must love music to begin with. I mean, the entire game revolves around it. So as a musician, I love music. I love listening and to it. And I also like, you always feel this fidget every time there's a really good beat going on, or there's this really sick melody line or riff, and you just want to drum your wing feathers to the beat. And like, I mean, for me, that was what I think is the core of why I play rhythm games in the first place. It's the love for music, the love for playing music, and the love for doing things related to music. When it comes to that sense of achievement that I talked about earlier, I think that is the driving force for getting better. Because like as a musician, we have a perfectionist streak in us. We want to be the best at what we do, or at least be our best at what we do. So I mean, you always want that sense of achievement. It's like a drug, a fix that you get every time you overcome a hurdle that you thought was impossible, or that you have been trying really hard for ages and you finally achieved it. So maybe you could call it like it's a way of like validating the hard work that you put in, and also feeling that sense of, hey, I've improved, I'm better than I was before. I guess also when you talk about like what tips do I have, I can't really speak for everyone, but I would say start by finding out what is your favorite songs in the franchise. Because if you're not even enjoying the music, then it might be very difficult to motivate yourself to play. So I would say start with that. At least have a few songs that you're comfortable with, that you really enjoy playing. The beats agree with you, and the entire process is enjoyable. And then as you seek more improvement, then it's when you open up your repertoire and try more different songs. Try songs that you would otherwise not have touched, and maybe it might just introduce you to another class of music that you never knew you would enjoy. I might be going a bit on a tangent here, but one of the things I never knew I would enjoy was dubstep, or for that matter, any of these more electronic, the hardcore electronic kind of sounds. I honestly hated the first Camellia song I listened to, and I think I'm going to get hated for saying that. I am a hardcore Camellia fan right now, but when I first heard Camelia's songs, I was like, this is just noise. I guess what happened was, by playing more of those songs and exposing myself to it, it became like an acquired taste, and I enjoyed it more. But again, that came from the willingness to try something different outside of my comfort zone. So I think that's the few things I have. Love music, seeking out that next fix of, the sense of achievement, and being open to trying out new things and playing beyond just what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and those are definitely great tips, especially when a lot of the time the main I guess advice that many people would give is to just say, hey, just play more, right? The more you play, the better you get, and the more comfortable you get. But as you mentioned, there's quite a few other things you could keep in mind, right? Getting just trying to find a sort of passion for improvement, being able to just find a few other ways to approach certain things. And I don't know, Rowlet, like, when you were playing your arcade games back then, like, was that like also a thing, right? Just like all that time commitment, despite the fact that you had to like physically go to an arcade and such, was that like also a thing that just, even though like that could have been a barrier, it just, you're just so motivated that, you just keep playing at end to improve?
I mean, beyond just the fact that I wanted to improve for the sake of improvement, I guess the fact that you had to make a special trip down to the arcade, or you had to invest money every single time you wanted to play a song, gave me that the feeling that, hey, I better not be wasting my money. I better be doing my best every single time I play. Earlier I mentioned that I made a lot of friends along the way, and I think that was very important. Surrounding myself with a community of friends that were around my skill level. So it's like we became like friendly rivals with each other. We would, whenever I got an achievement, my friend would be like, okay, I think I can do it too, and they will spur themselves to do it. And then they will beat my achievement, so I'll be like, no, I now need to go and get that achievement as well. And it became this like friendly, iron sharpens iron kind of feeling, where we all improved together and we all grew as rhythm gamers together.
Wow.
That I think let me stay in this community for so long.
Definitely. Well, that's really cool, and I think that's it's just such a shame when you sort of put it in that way, right? Where how like the arcade experience is definitely like the old school experience, where there is that sort of community bonding in that time where they all commit and go together to play, and there's a little bit of a sense of competitiveness to it as well, which urges people to keep playing and do more. I personally, like, in my, I guess, background, I was mostly like a fighting game player, although I didn't really play a lot in the arcades. I really saw how a lot of people really commit to just spend all that, those coins, like fight each other in fighting games, and that competitive spirit is still there. So, just talking about all these arcades, it's just such a shame that, arcades are just slowly phasing out, and of course gacha is the future, but it's a shame that the arcade scene is definitely growing lower now.
I mean, and arcades as a physical place also give this identity, like we are regulars of this specific arcade. So like it helps us to find like-minded individuals where we can build community with, and it also gives us that sense of belonging. Like you mentioned earlier, the community and all. It is a very sad day every time the arcade that I frequent or the arcade that I'm main in closes, and I had to face that 3 times. It was pretty sad.
Man. Yeah.
I was numb by the 3rd time.
Numb by the 3rd time, yeah. I don't know. We'll see how arcades do. I know a lot of arcades are definitely slowly closing. I think, I don't know, was it the Sega in Japan that was also closing as well? So
I believe so. Yes, the one at Akiba, the very big one. They are pulling out all their arcade business, from what I understand.
Yeah. But that's how it is, right? Gacha is the future. So. But yeah, funny enough though, like I am pretty happy that like there's a local arcade in my area, not that local, but I mean it takes a bit of a while for me to get there. But in that particular arcade, there is My, and other games. I think like Salvoltex is there as well. There's a couple of rhythm games, but you can't you can't use like point cards to grab points there, and frankly, when I played my I was pretty bad at it. It doesn't make sense. Circle motions don't make sense to me. Give me horizontal lines, please.
I'm guessing you're gonna hate Waka and La Nota.
Oh yeah, I played La Nota actually. I did play La Nota. Oh man, it was a struggle. It was a struggle. Yeah, it was tough. I was playing a little bit of demo before, and that made a lot more sense. But yeah, Lonoda was difficult. But yeah. Well, let's hope that arcades maybe have a mini revival of sense. It's always hopefully at least maybe some arcades in your area or in our area still stay active and maybe keep the little bit of nostalgic vibe alive. Yeah. Good. One other thing you mentioned, Rowlet, and I think that's really important, that it's really important to really, I guess, work together and be in a community that has like-minded and be able to support each other. And as you mentioned, just be sort of like rivals and such, right? So when you joined Bang Dream, how did you because Bang Dream, as we talked, it's a gacha game, right? There's not really you don't physically go somewhere to build a community. So how did you first, I guess, join a community in Bang Dream? Where did that all start? And how did you continue to grow, I guess, like the friendships that you have right now?
Well, the story goes back to when I first joined played Bang Dream, I actually decided that this was going to be a casual experience. I was just here for the anime songs, and like I said I wouldn't will. But after a while, I realized that it was a lot more than, I think that's the nature of us gamers. Once we get very invested in the game, we'll be like, I want to find out more about the game, information about the game. So my first access with the information, of course, was from Reddit. I think, fortunately or unfortunately, that's most of first at the early stages of Bang Dream in the global server. It was our main source of information. And there was a Discord link, so I clicked on the Discord link and decided to lurk there for the next month or so and see what people were talking about the game. And I guess after a while, when I started posting my scores, getting to know people got warmed up a little to me, and I warmed up to people. And there was actually, towards the end of that year or the start of the next year, there was kind of like, we wanted to do what we call QAP, or Quintuple All Perfect, for those not in the know, where all 5 players join the same room and we try to perfect the song together. And from what I understand, Phil, there have been other QAP members that have joined this studio before, so I think I'm preaching to the choir. Well, so I can't remember exactly when we started. It's really been a very long time ago, but when I was joining the group for the first time, they had, I think Global Server had exactly one QAP, and that was Quintuple Smile, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, because at that time I wasn't very deep in that community. And it was done for anniversary. That part I remember. But they wanted to do more, and so a bunch of people that I don't know, most of them don't play anymore, Hollow, Lights, they decided, hey, let's create a group that will come together and try to QAP songs. And from that, I got very involved with that group. Still remember our first QAP was Kiseki. Due to random. we were tilting very hard on some 25 that we were trying, and we're just like, let's just all hit random. And we got Kiseki. So we're like, it's Kiseki. I hope we don't fall asleep. And we QAP'd it. So that was our first, at least for that group. And ever since then, we invited more people, and as we play together, it really takes a lot of effort, a lot of concentration for a QAP. More than just being good at the game yourself, you need to be consistent and always perform perfectly, so that we can minimize the effects of lapses in concentration by other players. And yeah, because of this shared suffering, if you might call it, I made a lot of good friends like Houdini, White Whale, Neko, must speak properly. Flan was joined us for a while. So many of them I'm still in contact with, even if QAP is currently on hiatus.
That's wow. Well, that's great. And again, as you mentioned, we had a few QAP members join us already in the studio before, and you talked about it. But I guess this is the first time we're hearing in terms of like the lore behind it. It kind of sounds like you were kind of like maybe one of the first founding members of the group, and then slowly the others started joining in sort of like I guess it would be like a next generation kind of thing. That's what
Well, I would consider myself between the two generations because
Okay.
there were a group of very established players, most of them having already retired by now. And there was a group of, and at one point we had this problem where we only had 4 people. So we could never do anything. And I would go on to pub court and we'll just like ask, anyone can help us get a QAP here, get a QAP there. And that's when we grew the group of players. We had to migrate servers several times because the group was changing, and after a while when Lights retired, we no longer had admin rights to the server, so we had to create a new server for that as well. But yeah, I mean, I did see most of it as it went down. I did get to see as well, like a lot of players come and like grow up and become very consistent players, much better players than when they first joined.
For sure. Well, that's amazing just to hear that little other side of QAP, because of course, we heard it when Houdini and White Whale joined, and then eventually there was some that was sort of like a little bit later down the road. But hearing kind of like the origin stories and a little bit of like how it started, how it sort of ended, and then it's like rejuvenated again. It's really nice to see. And as you mentioned, right, these people are all very like-minded. They push you and they're competitive, and they all want to work together and work hard to try and get that quintuple all perfect in a particular song. So that's honestly really cool. Rowlet, did you like have a particular like QAP that you have like a great memory of, or maybe like the one that's you're most proud of?
Well, I actually have 2 stories. One is probably the most painful QAP we ever had. I think if I mention the song title now, no one would actually expect it to be that painful. But the song was Neo Aspect.
Oh.
It took us 2 years to get that QAP.
What? 2 years? What happened?
So when we first wanted to do Neo Aspect, part of the requirement we had because when you're in the room, you can actually when you video, it will show all the players in their positions, right, in the live view. So we actually had a stage view. So that means somebody had to have a Lisa center, then a Rinko center, a Yukina center, and we had to make sure everything was arranged properly. So it also mattered that we had the costumes. And so getting the 5 members who had all the costumes ready and be able to do a session for a long enough period of time was not that easy. And then the song decided to cuck us every single time we tried. So getting the time slot was not easy. Then when we played it, we would play for like an hour and a half and we would not get anything. We call it solo burden, get 1 grade, be the only one to get 1 grade.
Oh no.
And it happened so many times. We put the song on a very long hiatus, I think not just a couple of months, like half a year. And when we tried it again, it was the same story. So the day we finally got it, it was more of a relief than anything else. But I guess we managed to check that off our one less regret at the end of our lives. But okay, so I don't think we came here to listen to my sad story. So I'll tell a happier story. This happy story was what the QAP team dubs the Christmas Miracle. So we were trying to do all the Christmas songs. So that at that point it was Christmas no Uta, Rumbling Memory, and the last one was the Hello Happy song, which I suddenly can't remember the title.
Omoide Illumination.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
We're trying to do all of those songs. And we were tilting pretty hard on Christmas no Uta. So we decided, okay, let's have a random session. So we just hit random on every single song and just enjoy whatever RNG wants to give us. And then we got Survivor Never Give Up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, let's do this special because why not? I mean, we were not expecting anything. And okay, so when we were playing the song, I could have sworn I heard 1 grade. I was like, something sounded off. So at the end of the song, everyone was quiet and I just typed, I'm sorry guys, I think I got 1 grade. And I saw no one else messaged anything. And I was like, oh no, am I the only one? Turns out I heard wrong.
Oh!
And we were like, wait, what? We just got it, just like that. It spawned a few memes. Number one, that you can never trust me when I say that I got one grade. Even I can't trust me. But the other thing is that Survivor Never Give Up is easier than every other song in the game. Because we got it in one try.
Wow, that's crazy. Like Survivor Never Give Up special difficulty, it's a 27, but it's like a really wacky 27. There's a lot of really fast parts, and man, that's difficult. And just to get it out on one try, wow, that's crazy. I could see why you call it a Christmas miracle.
Yeah, it was. If you believe in karma, it was karma for all the bad experiences we had with Christmas no Uta.
Wow. Well, that's honestly amazing. I can see why you're super proud of that. And me personally, when it comes to APs, like I'm like decent at it. Like, I mean, if I'm like pretty focused, it's like okay, but like, man, sometimes it's like not even like the hard songs. It's like the easy songs, right? Like Pop and Shuffle. Man, I can't even do that. That's like the most impossible AP ever.
Pop and Shuffle is difficult. Mainly, like I think, as you mentioned, it has very few notes, and the notes are not even synced correctly to the song.
It's also so long, so it's just so difficult to concentrate when there's just not a lot of notes, and it's such a long song. So, ugh.
Yes. Often I say that sometimes the momentum of the song also matters. So songs like Firebird Fool are incredibly difficult to perfect. Yeah, just simply because there's these long periods of intensity and then suddenly long periods of low intensity. So you just keep having to code switch, and it's 5 minutes, which is a marathon.
For sure. Well, that's really cool. Again, it's great to hear all those QAP experiences, Rowlet. And I'm not sure if, within that community, are there any particular individuals would you say are like your closest friends, closest rivals, right? In terms of like maybe who do you think is like pushing you the most when it comes to getting good?
I would say that in general, we don't really treat each other as rivals. We treat each other more as like fellow sufferers, refugees, suffering together for the sake of QAP. And I think it really is more of like what you mentioned, because we're all suffering together, we want to alleviate each other's suffering, so we try to play better. But if you talk about who I feel is one of the biggest carries in QAP, well, we all have our strengths and niches, but one of the most consistent players I know is Lovely. Lovely has many sessions where he would just perfect throughout the entire session, while the rest of us are floundering. And we often joke that he is the QAP carry. Well, it's not really a joke because it's true. And he really like shows me what consistency looks like. What every player who earnestly wants to QAP should aim to be able to do on the songs that they want to QAP. It's a very tall order. And I think for most people, this is something that really requires a basic amount of a beginning amount of talent, but at least it's a goal that we can all aim towards. So it is pretty inspiring sometimes just playing with him and having him carry us.
Yeah, and shout outs to him. I think also recently on his Twitter he mentioned that he did get a all game all perfect in the JP, which is crazy. I'm not sure if he got Catastrophe Banquet yet.
He sent the picture yesterday.
I
think he got it 3 hours later because he was busy at the song release.
Oh, he's just a little busy, but it's like, I'll just go back in 3 hours late and bam, got it, easy. Oh my god, crazy.
He's complaining about easy, normal, and hard right now.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mentioned, right? Again, sometimes the easier songs are not necessarily the easiest AP, so. We
fall asleep playing them.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, honestly, Rowlet, thanks for sharing all that, the QAP stories, and of course, they may not be on hiatus right now, but hopefully in the future, maybe there'll be another future project we'll see from you guys, and maybe we'll see a QAP from you guys soon.
We are waiting for Sonic Sync. At least I know Houdini has sworn herself off QAP until Sonic Sync comes. Personally, I'm inclined to agree with her.
Yeah. So again, for those who are unaware, JP Dory right now has a sort of feature called Sonic Sync, which is something that helps alleviate latency when you tap notes. And I think a lot of rhythm games, not just like, the Bandori like rhythm games, but just like rhythm games in general use this technology, and people do find it to be quite beneficial and useful. So yeah, maybe in Dory again, it might come later this year or maybe early next year. So it might be a while, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. Again, maybe for now you guys will stick with JP Dory, but we'll see.
Yeah. We don't dare to encroach upon Gorilla Land.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's fair because Japanese gorillas are something else. All right. Well, again, all the best. Hopefully, again, there'll be some future QAP projects for you guys. Hey guys, it's Phil here. Hope you're enjoying the episode so far. The RePHIL Studio is now available on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Check us out on YouTube, but of course as well on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe so you're up to date with the latest episodes whenever they're released. And be sure to give ratings and comments and spread the word. All that engagement is greatly appreciated to spread the word about the RePHIL Studio podcast. Of course, special thanks to all my Filler Nation members who've been constantly supporting me and my content throughout this journey with the RePHIL Studio. So if you would like to support the RePHIL Studio and my content and greatly appreciate it, consider joining by subscribing to my Twitch below or by joining my Patreon. Links in the description below, and any support is greatly appreciated. We have a new sister channel. You can check it out in the card above, where there's going to be exclusive content, including my Twitch VODs, as well as a sister project for the RePHIL Studio that will be happening in the future. So definitely check it out and be sure to give a subscribe. And of course, feel free to join our Anga Academy Discord server, where we have a fun, loving community and interact with our members there, be able to contribute to the studio question that's featured in the podcast every week, and get to know a little bit more about our special guests featured in the podcast. So we hope to see you there. Why don't we talk a little bit more about, I guess, the other components, right? You mentioned earlier that, there's something called high score rating. And again, for those who are a little bit unfamiliar with high score rating, it's sort of like a score, like a hidden score, not really too focused too much on Bandori inside the game, but they take like the 3 highest scores within a certain band. Like 3 highest scores of songs of a particular band, right? So top 3 Past the Palace, top 3 Roselia, etc., etc. And you combine those into a rating, and then you sort of get this sort of arbitrary number as part of your rating on your profile. And according to the very, very unofficial leaderboard on Bestory, Rowlet, I think you're first on there. Is that correct?
Apparently I am.
So what happened there? Was that always something you wanted to do, or you just kind of like stumbled upon it, be like, oopsie daisies, I guess I'm first on this leaderboard?
Well, okay. So I would say that most of me being there is a bit of circumstance and a bit of wanting to achieve it since I already am there. But okay, maybe we'll start from what it all began from. Once I was decided that I'm not going to be able to survive not winning the game.
Mm-hmm.
Old habits dying hard, like you mentioned. So I was like, what cards do I want to pull for? And I decided early on that Dream Festival cards were the most future-proof of sorts, because they gave a flat bonus, very not really very conditional on certain things, and like, for example, not life conditional, or it doesn't punish you for getting 1 grade for the rest of the skill window. And it was a very big boost at that time, the highest in the game. So I was like, I think these cards, and on top of all of that, when the event comes that allows you to pull a Dream Fest, you have twice the rate of drawing a 4-star. So there's literally no better time to pull and get good cards. And future-proof also because eventually it will cover 1 of every character. You will have all the different elements, attributes, and it was pretty balanced parameters, although at that time it didn't really matter. So I was like, I think I shall collect all all the Dream Festival cards. And what ended up happening was, in addition to drawing Dream Festival cards, I would randomly draw other 4-stars, some of which were also scorers in their own right. And I started finding myself getting 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5 teams that were comprised mostly of scorers, especially those that happen to be the most meta. An example would be, I literally randomly stumbled on the most optimal team for the Natsu Matsuri song ranking, just simply because I've been pulling Dream Festival gachas like a mad bird. So, and because of that, it reached the point where I had meta teams for high score ranking in addition to normal song ranking. And I had the ability to, well, at that point, perfect all the so-called meta songs decently consistently. I mean, no one talks about Gokai, that song's cursed. But yeah, but I mean, it is meta for high score ranking. It has been for the past 3 years or so. Anyway, so what happened then was, I realized that because every time you want to get that high score ranking, you have to play through all 24 songs every time there's a shift in the meta, like a new band or when they improve the area items. So it wasn't actually a very competitive aspect of the game. People don't really want to have to do the whole process of perfecting or even optimizing 24 songs every time there's an update. So most of the time it was just like, there was really no competition. The people who could perfect the songs, they didn't want to pull the gacha. The people who pulled the gacha, they didn't want to play the songs. So I would say that I just happened to be at that confluence of the two aspects of having a high score rating.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because it's kind of hard to not only have both whale tendencies, but also have like the skill set, the gorilla skill set. So Rowlet, even though you are an owl, you have a little bit of gorilla and whale in your blood as well. And it's just like a perfect mix. It's not necessarily the full like aspect, but you just kind of have the perfect mix that like you're able to sort of achieve it over the others. So which is really neat. But although you did mention again, it is not the most competitive, frankly, because the game doesn't really care too much about it. There's no there are rewards to it if you reach a certain like score for each song, but ultimately there isn't like a big prize like BU being number 1 on the best story leaderboards for this, for instance. Do you think that you think the game should expand a bit further into high score rating, maybe make it a little bit more relevant, or what do you think?
If I were Bushi, I would be a little cautious because this is, after all, encouraging whaling. If you have an entire leaderboard and special titles that or even for that matter, extra materials given to players who achieve high rankings on such a leaderboard, I feel it's very anti-consumer. This is the kind of thing where you only achieve because you have the passion to do so, or in my case, the opportunity to do so. But I can foresee a situation where they decide to do maybe a seasonal HSR thing where it changes. They maybe take it for the period of 1 month or 2 months, and you have all that time to make your HSR as high as possible within that given period of time, and they wipe it at the end of it. So there's every season there's possibly a new winner. So people can have something to aim for other than on Free Life, other than just grinding event points during the events. And that might still be very anti-consumer in a sense, but I think if people know that they have to keep doing it over and over again, at least it won't be one person dominating the ranking, and there will be some maybe more friendly competition for a period of time.
That's fair. Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Like having a sort of, maybe not a temporary leaderboard of sorts, right? A seasonal leaderboard that wipes out after every season, and maybe the rewards may not necessarily even be that great either at the end of this sort of presumed theoretical event, but just having something like that, I think, could possibly encourage a different level of the fan base to try and engage and see what they could do in this. So again, we'll see. Maybe Bushiroad, if you're listening, you could jot some notes down. We have some pretty creative minds here. So yeah, maybe that's something that that they'll do. But for the time being, though, HSR is just a very not too big of a deal when it comes to the game. But regardless, you could say that you are the king owl of at least something. So I know some people I know some people are grinding like HSR. I know like one person, they were I think they were like, oh, like I'm gonna try like HSR, and they were like grinding some of like the Morph songs and the Morphonica songs, and they're like, wow, I'm like actually on pace with Rowlet right now. But when they look at the other songs, it's just like, nope. It's just like I can't keep up.
Yeah.
So
The Morphonica songs are not actually very meta, so it's very difficult to get very big numbers on Morphonica. But yeah, that will change hopefully over time. I think as of JP right now, Morphonica is the worst category in terms of potential score.
That's fair. Well, again, let's see how HSR goes. But for the time being, I guess for now, we could say that for now, you have that crown, and we'll see how long that lasts for HSR.
I'll enjoy it for as long as it lasts.
So one other thing I do want to talk about, and I think this is like the main thing we want to talk about, is your tiering experience, because you have a couple of T1s and probably a few other titles as well in the podium or T10 range. But Rowlet, maybe take a step back and tell us, where did that all start? Like, where did you say that you wanted to tier for in this game? And in particular, what convinced you to sort of end up choosing song tiering?
Oh, okay. So it's pretty long if we were to talk about my tiering history. It started from... okay, so I planned only 2 events to tier. One was New Aspect, and the other was Sunset. But before New Aspect, I happened again by random pooling to chance upon the optimal team at that time for cooking class. So that was my very first foray into tiering. And to be honest, the event was pretty dead. I got top 10 with 4 million EP. It's not like today, if you have 4 million EPs, it may not even guarantee you a T100 on a more woke event.
Wow.
But, yeah. So, but it was my first experience tiering, and I would say that I didn't put in that many hours, so it was quite manageable. New Aspect was New Aspect, where we do not talk about that cursed event. But but when I did Sunset, it was I ended up doing an average of 18 hours a day, and it really killed my enjoyment of the game, because at the end of the entire event, I played a little bit more, and then I went on hiatus for like almost a month, missing out on a lot of event titles and stars from the event rewards. So it was because I was so burnt out, and that was only after playing 18 hours a day for I think about 8.5 to 9 days. And I was thinking, if this is what tiering is about, I don't think it's for me. I cannot enjoy something that I have to keep doing without feeling the sense of satisfaction that comes from improvement. It's different when I grind a song for a perfect, because I know I'm improving, or at least I'm learning something about the song. But when it comes to tiering, it's just mindless, and it's like almost like doing a menial task or a job. And when that is my leisure time is being used to do another job, not worth it. Then I also happened to, like I mentioned earlier, the first time I had somehow randomly got a perfect team was for song tiering was Natsu Matsuri. And at that time, I didn't know the next thing about song tiering. I really thought it was just get the perfect skill order or perfect the song with the optimal team at all at skill level 5. And that's all I understood. But what happened was I saw people, I was 4th in the event, and I had all perfect on the optimal skill order. So I was like, what? How do people get higher scores than me? Are they hacking or something? And that was when I learned about optimizations. I would say the optimizations was a very foreign idea to me, because it involves squeezing more nodes than what the game designed into each skill window. And it makes you actually literally play the game wrongly just so that you can get more score. At first, I was very put off by that. I was like, no, this is stupid. I'm not actually playing the song. I'm playing for the score, not for the song. But I realized that that's just a different way. After a while, that it's a different way of measuring success. And there is a sense of achievement when you can somehow play the song wrong, and yet the game recognizes it as being better. It's like speedrunners using glitches to complete a game aside from the way it was intended, by getting ridiculous times that are otherwise impossible. And my first time really doing it, and I see that in the audience today, I have my fellow song ranker from that event, Flan. Flam was going for the that was A to Z, round 2, Saturnine Sandglass, as well as Orchestra of Smiles. Yeah, that was a good time. So I remember that when I was preparing for that, I didn't really prepare too hard. It was more like if I get that particular banner card, I would tier a song. And I happened to get it, so I told Flan, hey, I'm going for Saturnine Sandglass because I like the song the most out of the 3. And that was when I prepared by looking at the optimization chart, trying to figure out what was the what skill order I needed, as well as how to squeeze out every last frame so that I could get the maximum possible score with my with certain conditions. And I was very proud of myself for that event, because I think I got all the optimizations that I wanted to get, and the only thing that was holding me back was I did not get the best skill order. I got the second best skill order. So it was as close to the perfect the perfect run that I could get, and it was apparently good enough, because most people didn't even try after that when I hit a particular threshold. So it proved to me that there were things that I could do to be even better at the song than what the game intended. I could say that I've truly mastered more aspects of the song than others could claim. And it was so good that I could do the optimizations for like a month or 2 after the event. And like, I was still hitting it even though I didn't have to, because I was like, I had already, like your mind expanded and you're ready to take in more information. So I've had another experience like that. That was, if I'm not wrong, Stay Alive during the ReZero event, where Noel, Lith, and I actually formed the score wall of the maximum possible optimization. So we took Noel was first, I was second, Life was third, and we just took the top 3 places with the perfect optimized score. And it was pretty much a sight to behold. Yeah, so it was like that sense of achievement that I've been talking about at the start, and I'm gonna harp on it, because to me that is what drove me at least during song ranking. Of course, now I'm kind of sort of retired. I only song rank because I happen to have the band, and I mostly just go for all perfect with some of what we call gallop ops, but nothing as hardcore as I used to do. Wow. But yeah, that was more or less the tiering journey. So song ranking just because, it fit my philosophy of the game.
That's amazing, honestly. And just thinking about it a bit more, Rowlet, it really did make a lot of sense, right? Because, you're actually quite skilled in the game, which certainly helps and contributes to getting a higher score in song ranking. But, your very, unique gacha pulling strategy, and the fact that you had all these like sort of 4 stars in a way, also kind of set you up for success in this path towards song tiering. And ultimately, at the end of the day, song tiering and event tiering, the way that they're played or handled is very different. They both use a significant amount of resources, but I guess some of them, like event tiering, for instance, a lot of the resources is your time, which for a lot of people, it's not necessarily the easiest. I imagine, for you with song tiering, sometimes if you're really lucky, you could literally get it on your first attempt and you could just go home and sleep for the rest of the event and you're good to go. So I think it definitely makes sense in that aspect. And you also mentioned optimization is like technically playing the game in a not optimized way, which is like funny. So it's like, so why do we call it optimizations then when we're not actually playing the game as we're intended to? But it's pretty funny there. But Rowlet, it's honestly like just so amazing to hear that you were able to just get all these achievements, all these goals, and all those experiences just sound so amazing. In particular, like, if let's say you had like a new song tier, right? If you were to give them advice on what to prepare for, how to prepare for a song tier, like what would you do? What kind of advice would you give in terms of helping maybe like a newer player get into song tiering?
Okay, so song tiering starts off by admitting that you are willing to wail and stop at nothing to wail. Because in terms of band and team, you must have the perfect team. Without the perfect team, there's no chance.
If you're going for like a higher ranking, right? If you're like going like, yeah.
I mean, if you're just going for T100, 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 optimal should give it to you. Song tiering in more recent events have become more competitive because more players have more resources, more cards. It all builds up. When I first started, most people didn't have a full team of 4 stars to song tier. But nowadays, a full team of 4 stars is a given for most common bands, like full band events. So I would say start by planning your gacha pools. You have a 1 year, well, less than 1 year now, but you do have all the events that JP has up to this point. So, and unlike event tiering where you have to figure out exactly when the event is going to happen now, in song tiering, all you need to do is figure out when the gacha is happening. So, and that's not too difficult because it will always follow the event schedule. So use that, start by planning out your finances and your gacha. Make sure you will get the full team with the miracle tickets if you need, and etc. The second thing you will want to do is you want to find a song that you enjoy playing. And when I say enjoy playing, I mean really must love the song. So I don't think I would have bothered to tier if Poppin' Shuffle had a like even if I had the optimal team, I would just do it once and I'll be like, you know what, I don't even want to touch that song anymore. But it was like Setsunai Senglass, I Setsunai Senglass, I chose that song because I love the song. Scenario of Love, I didn't mind playing over and over again. Redo, Stay Alive, these were good songs. I enjoyed playing them. So find the song that you want to do. And then the next part comes, which is, I would say start by practicing such that you can consistently perfect the song. It does matter, especially if you're going to grade during the skill window. That really hurts score a lot. Start by getting that. If you can consistently perfect the song with a 5 out of 5 optimized team, after the skill RNG, you should still be in very good running for a top 10 in that song, at least for the English server. Now, if you want podium, that's a completely different story because then you need to do what we call the optimizations, and that is hitting skill notes up to 3 frames later, or sometimes hitting them earlier, such that we can squeeze more notes into that skill window and get more score. And those can make seemingly easy songs incredibly difficult. I'm seeing the holes can be delayed up to 11 frames for certain.
Oh my god!
For certain sliders, yes. So that can also factor into the way that you hit your optimized patterns. So, but at the end of the day, I think it boils down to consistency. If you are able to, the one thing that hurts the song tier the most is not time, the amount of time that you need, but the luck that you get with your skill RNG. So by being more consistent, you alleviate yourself that pain because you know that every single time you play, you are in a good chance of when that perfect proc comes, you have that good chance of getting that perfect play as well.
Yeah. I think I recall like in some research where like there could be some instances where the optimal skill order is like a 1 in 120 chance, which that's like the maximum, which of course it's not the greatest chance by any means, but as you mentioned, right, having that skill set, that consistency to maybe minimize and alleviate that RNG affecting your score is again, it's a very fine balance of the resources you've prepared in advance for the cards, as well as the skill level you have in the particular song. So yeah, great. That's some great tips, Rowlet. And I definitely, hopefully some of our viewers will appreciate that. Maybe they'll use that to their advantage if they do some song tiering in the future. So one last thing before we move on from this topic, Rowlet, is what would you consider to be like maybe your most difficult song tier title, and what did you consider to be like the one that you, I guess, enjoyed the most? Maybe you've already answered this, but just to kind of summarize in your achievements.
Difficult, definitely Rokuchonen.
Oh,
I mean, playing that song was a pain in the rear to begin with, and it didn't help that it was somehow super competitive. We had 4 people going for podium, and it was really close. Like every time I got a new high score, because at that point I couldn't do a lot of the reverse optimizations that were required to get even higher, like what Ketan ended up doing. But I could still do the gallops, and I could still delay certain procs. Every time I thought I got a really good score, the 4th place guy will overtake me again, and we just kept playing leapfrog the entire event. It was nerve-wracking throughout it. Yeah, so I think that changed the way I looked at song tiering, that it's not about doing just enough. Like in event tiering, you just want to hit the cutoff and relax the rest of the event. But in song tiering, it's never enough. You can be beaten literally at the last second. So you always want to do your maximum and just go for broke. Just get the best possible score that you can achieve. So in terms of the most memorable, I mean, I mentioned 2 of them, so I will just mention the song alongside Stay Alive, where Redo was a complete surprise to me, because I didn't actually study that song very hard. I just did a bit, and Live also, or Liv, gave me some tips. He actually, he was my competitor, but he gave me tips. So I really respect him. Mad props to him for that. He showed me how to do one of the particular, or mentioned one particular ops that I did not consider when I was optimizing the song. And I was like, wow, it's actually a ops that I can hit almost 100% of the time. Wow. So I factored that into my ranking. And it ended up that I did vote him in the for T1. So it was while I feel like I owe him some, but I guess also my consistency also paid off. So it was a very good feeling. There is one more song tier which I don't know whether it counts as flexing. I feel like it just shows sometimes that certain song tiers can be very easy to achieve if the event is not competitive. And that was when I got Nostalgic Rainfall podium without the optimal team.
Oh no. What happened there?
There were only 2 people with the optimal team.
Oh.
And I had 4 out of 5. So it was literally no one else could get it, so I was next in line to receive it. So it was literally just handed to me. It was just handed to me. Yeah, but it was quite funny, and I mean, at that point, I was already kind of sort of retired from song ranking in general. I mean, I would do it just because I'll just play the song once and call it a day. But it was a nice bonus, I guess. So a little happy achievement for me.
For sure. Wow, that's great. And honestly, like, the way that people think about song tiering and like people like really go to the nitty gritty part to think about optimization and stuff, it really like just feels like those like those frame data like gurus, right? They're just like looking at it like frame for frame, like doing all that research. Big shout outs to those people, because I wouldn't have the patience to do such research and such dedication to find very specific ways to optimize score. So big shout outs to them. And again, it's great to hear that you have a lot of these song achievements. So big congrats on that, Rowlet.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, and have you conclude, I just want to talk about our studio question very quickly. So at every podcast, I ask a question to server members, and the guests will also be able to contribute to that question as well. So this question that I want to ask is this is the following question I asked. In Bang Dream, if you could redesign one chart or add a new special chart to a song, which one would it be and why? I'll let you think about a few for a bit. I don't know if you already have an answer, but we have a couple of answers. I'll show them on the video if you're watching it on YouTube right now. We have stuff like Gokai Gokai. We have Happy Synthesizer. Neo Aspect, or like possibly either like a redesign or like a new special difficulty, or Spectre. Blessing Chord, maybe add a new map for that. There's someone wanted more drum rolls in Sensen, and I said no. I vetoed that. And there's Shin Takarajima, because both its maps are very uninspiring. So Rowlet, what would you say as your, the map? If you were Bushiroad, you could redesign a map, what would that be?
Wow, it's actually a really difficult question because there's so many eligible songs for all sorts of reasons. I mean, I really agree with Neo Aspect. Neo Aspect needs a better chart than what it has.
Yeah.
And although I would say that I really love Shin Takarajima's special chart because it's a very creative use of slider art.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, okay. On a personal note, like what I would want is an even more epic Ringing Bloom.
Oh.
Yeah, because that's my favorite, or at least my top three Bang Dream songs. So having a really epic one that is really challenging on the level of Hell or Hell might be something that fits my aims of the game. But then again, people are going to say that that's being elitist. You're only catering to higher end skill players, and they want a more accessible chart. So, well, it could go both ways. I wouldn't mind having Ringing Bloom easier for a special chart. I mean, just to abuse those curve sliders and draw an actual proper heart this time.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah. There was one more song that I felt they kind of need to. I mean, other than you mentioned Blessing Chord, but I guess if I could redesign one of the charts, I'll redesign Redo, because that chart is very underwhelming for a 27. Like, considering the skill level inflation that has been going on, the 26 is more of a 27 than the 27 itself. So it's going more on the lines of you need to completely redesign the 27 EX and make it into a true 27 that lives up to the current standard of 27s. I mean, some of us who have played the JP server, we know Just Awake came out, and that was a pretty good, difficult chart compared to some of the earlier 27s, or even Repaint. Repaint is pretty epic as well. So these new 27s are making me feel like the old 27s don't deserve to be there anymore. So maybe a re-look at some of the older 27s to make them more relevant in today's climate might be good. Yeah. Then again, Redo already has a special, so I don't think it will happen.
Yeah. Well, you could say that you want to redo. But yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like, I definitely think that there's some charts or some maps that maybe aren't necessarily, like, the difficulty isn't as, like, graded as correctly. Like, maybe if there's a way to maybe even redesign the whole difficulty chart, that could be like a whole other project, but that'd be pretty interesting. Or maybe like have like a plus system, like a 26 plus, 27 plus. So like stuff like, for instance, like maybe just off the top of my head, stuff like Miro or Go-Go Maniac, they would be like 26 pluses, for instance, because they're far more challenging than the average 26. That could be pretty interesting.
If I'm not wrong, one of the community members, Rave, he actually created an entire tier list where it goes, I think, up to +5 or something like that, and up to -3 or -4. Oh, but I just realized I've been lapsed in my judgment. There is one chart that desperately needs a special.
Oh yeah?
It's the song that started it off, Tokimeki Experience.
Oh yes.
It completely needs a special because its EX is exactly as I mentioned. It does not live up to the 25s of today.
Yeah.
Most people think it's a 23. And and it has potential. Like, this is completely untapped, uncharted territory. We could make a 26 out of it that could, with the new mechanics, that it will be really fun. And I feel that Bushi should come out with that soon. Yeah, this is something that Bushi could do.
Yeah, for sure. And as for my answer to this question, I'd probably say not necessarily because like for instance, like for this one, Sugar Song Bitter Step, I think that one needs like the AX is a little nasty. Like I don't mind it. Like but like one person had like the funniest complaint about Sugar Song Bitter Step EX map. It feels like you're playing a different song every time, and I kind of agree. Like the map is just so crazily charted for no reason. It's just it's one of those early chart. The fact that it was just such an early chart that they didn't really have an idea of how to chart some things or map some things, and it's just not great. So I would probably redesign Sugar Song and probably Rebirth Day as well. Because
yes,
Rebirth
definitely.
Day is like there's like two parts in the beginning and end that are like ridiculous, and the rest of the song is like super easy. So it's like, okay, that's weird. So I think that one deserves a redesign.
I'll go so far as to say that the patterns in Rebirth Day are outright illegal.
Yeah. We need to rebirth that, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Anyway, Rowlet, again, we're just going to wrap up pretty soon. And honestly, thank you so much for taking the time to share all the experiences and stories you had. Like, honestly, like the tips and experiences you shared were really fascinating. And it's really great to hear from that. But before we go, I just want to ask, like, again, you mentioned that you were a little bit like semi-retired, but do you have still that urge? Like maybe in the future that you have like a project, either like a future song tier that you want to do, or maybe there's a QAP project that you're looking into, perhaps?
Well, our videographer needs to get his computer up and running, but we ever did a project called the 25 Gap project. It was the Gorilla AP project, where we will get people to send in recordings of their perfect play, and then we will actually simulate a QAP for that song where all 5 panels are showing with the MV of the song in the background. So I think the first run when we did it, we did the episode 2 songs for each band. Episode 2, season 2.
Yeah, season
songs.
2. Yeah.
So I remember doing Firebird. I also recorded Ringing Bloom for them once. That was quite a while back, but we have never really gotten to splicing those videos together. And I guess that's one project that I really hope we can get restarted, because now we have 35 members, 35 characters that need to be represented instead of just 25. So in terms of song tiering, I'm not that keen, but if it were to do these community projects, or even just getting more QAPs, getting another 27 QAP, that would be really lovely. Pun unintended. That will be the things that I'll look forward to. And just enjoying my time playing the game for perfection's sake, rather than trying to compete and get song tiers or event tiers. I think that time kind of is past me.
Yeah, that's fair. And of course, right, these community projects are always nice, and I don't know as well, like it's kind of getting a bit more difficult to song tier, because you may have noticed like the recent JP timeline where there's just a lot less VS lives and a lot less challenge lives, which are the usual suspects of song tiering. So it's also becoming a bit more difficult to song tier. So, all the best, Rowlet. That really sounds like a really cool project, the 25 Gap project. So let's see if that comes to fruition maybe later in the year. That might be something that we'll look forward to later this year. Maybe we'll see some light in that. But again, I think for a lot of people, I think the first thing is to wait on that Sonic Sync technology. So
yes, please.
Yeah. But honestly, Rowlet, thanks so much for taking the time to join us in the studio. Do you have any last words you want to share with our viewers today?
Thank you, Phil, so much for having me here. And I may not be the first burp here, but I hope everyone continues to enjoy the game and playing it the way we enjoy, rather than having someone tell us what's the right way to play the game. Because I think it's when we find our reason for playing and our reason for enjoying the game that we will stay in it longer and, have a better time out of it altogether.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Well, again, thanks so much, Rowlet, for joining. And as a reminder to all our viewers, RePHIL Studio Podcast is on all of your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Google, and Apple. And of course, if you want to interact with any of our special guests on the podcast, you can feel free to join our Anga Academy Discord server, where you could also contribute to the studio question, or even just comment down below in the video if you want to. If you want to contribute to the studio question as well. But until then, thanks so much for joining this episode of the RePHIL Studio. Our set has been complete, so make sure you get those cans ready so we can refill for the next set. But until then, thank you all so much for listening. This is your host, SB Philos4, signing out. Take care and bye-bye.